But I apologize to everybody who had to read all that stuff. All right, we need to, sorry. That was the end of public comment. Since the chat function is disabled, can we put back the public comment email address for a second? So since the chat function is disabled, if you have a question or comment that you want to submit over the course of the board meeting, please do so at the email address listed there, publiccomment@ura.org. And we can move on to approval of the meeting minutes from the regular board meeting of May 14th, 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and the minutes are approved. And now we can move into some announcements, beginning with the URA sponsorship of Cocopreneurs Black Business Relief Fund.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Following the murder of George Floyd, there were several protests that happened in Pittsburgh, one in particular downtown. It was a peaceful protest that turned violent with outside actors came into the area and damaged businesses and buildings in downtown Pittsburgh. Following this event, Camille Scantling, who's with us today, and founder of Cocopreneur, an organization that uplifts Black-owned businesses regionally, she took action and started a fund to raise money to help these businesses that were damaged recover. The URA is happy to be able to provide $10,000 to support this effort, as well as we're very happy that Citizens Bank is able to match this to provide another $5,000. So $15,000 will go to this cause to help the businesses, specifically the Black-owned businesses that were damaged in this occurrence. Next slide, please. Camille is here, as I mentioned. Camille, would you like to speak to what you're trying to do here and the support that you're garnering for businesses?
Sure. Thank you very much. And thank you to the URA and citizens for the contribution. I think it is a step in the right direction towards supporting more grassroots organizations who do the work that a lot of larger organizations have initiatives for, but don't necessarily have the same connections. So I think that this is a great step. As far as the fund itself, I'm currently working on what this will look like in a grander scheme, but it is going to go straight to small Black businesses in the greater Pittsburgh area. There are a bunch of different scenarios that our businesses will run into in the next couple of weeks, especially because of COVID-19 and business interruptions. Many businesses do not have the same level of revenue that they would have had their doors been open 100%. So we want to be able to make sure that people can sustain themselves during the uncertainty of the next couple of weeks. Make sure they can make the payments on their leases. If there's any inventory that was damaged because of the amount of time that they were left closed, making sure that they can cover inventory. In the larger scheme of things, this is something that Cocopreneur is looking to do long-term. There is currently not really a fund available for for-profit businesses, so we want to make sure that we meet that niche. A lot of the discussion now around diversity, inclusion, and equality tends to leave out the concept of equity. And this means that you're doing more for the people who need more for whatever reason. Our history in this country lends to why a lot of Black communities are in the state that they're in. And now it's time to do the work to make repair to that. So with organizations such as the URA, even when we talked about, you guys brought up the development that's happening around the city and offering contracts to Black contractors and construction businesses. it doesn't really mean much if they don't have the capacity to take on that type of work. So equitable development in that regard means helping them to get themselves to a place where they can take on large contracts and be a part of larger development. So we're talking about doing work like that. And again, I think this is a step in the right direction. We just have to continue to be intentional about how we help Black businesses grow, scale, and essentially take care of themselves. So thank you again. Yes.
Thank you, Camille, for all the work you're doing, not just this, of course, but all the work you're doing with Black-owned businesses. And those who are listening or watching this at home, if you'd like to contribute, the link here will show you where to go. Or you can go also to Black Business Relief Fund, which has been, which has been set up to collect the dollars. Is that correct, Camille?
Correct. That's through Inventrify, which is also a local founded organization.
Thank you.
Yes.
So Camille, I'd also like to thank you for having the vision and the forethought to think about grassroots initiatives that can be supported by the corporate and philanthropic and civic sector community. A lot of us sent out messages to talk about standing in solidarity, and I think that this presents a real opportunity to sort of put our money and our support where our intentions are. And I'd also like to thank Councilman Lavelle for bringing it to the URA's attention and calling us into action to make this donation. I certainly see it as a catalytic donation. And as you think about and continue to talk about what you want to do next, I want you to understand that you have the partnership and the support of those of us here at the URA. And I would encourage the board to think about this as sort of an introductory point to the kind of work that we could be doing moving forward. And we look forward to providing more presentations such as this to really support the leaders that have already found the solutions that we spend a lot of time in boardrooms trying to figure out. So thank you, Camille. I appreciate your service.
Thank you, Diamante. And if I could really quickly just insert this as well, because Sam brought this up earlier, but I would like to be more involved with the URA in a partnership role. And sometimes that means, bringing up things that could be more equitable or ways that the URA could be more intentional with the work that they do, right? So a part of being a community is making sure that we're keeping each other accountable. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think next is the EcoDistrict accredited professional. We're going to recognize a URA staff member who received additional accreditation.
Great, thank you, Chairman. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to announce and congratulate Lilly Freedman for passing her EcoDistricts AP exam a couple weeks ago. Lilly is one of our newest full-time staff members at the URA, originally started as an intern in 2018. She's finishing up her master's degree in sustainability, and she actually found the certification herself, and even better, through support of the Kresge Foundation, the training course and the exam were free to the URA. So EcoDistricts promote equity, sustainability, and resilience at the neighborhood level, and I think they'll really help advance some of our work. So Lilly works on different projects in Larmer where sustainability is a big focus. She is typically our project lead for projects that have a large sustainability component, and she is the URA's representative on the Uptown Task Force helping to implement the Eco Innovation District Plan. So Lily's here in the audience today if anybody has questions, but I'm really proud of her and glad that we have her at the URA, and glad that she was able to pursue this additional education.
That's great. Congratulations, Lilly.
Great, and I'll take this one as well.
Okay.
So Senator Heldman, there's going to be an upcoming community meeting. Just as a reminder, the URA acquired the Senator Heldman site late last year. It's a 2.5 acre site that features a large vacant shopping plaza with multiple storefronts and surface parking. In March of this year, the URA issued a request for interested tenants. So we were seeking information from those interested in leasing one or more of the storefronts of the plaza. Responses were due on April 1st. We received 14 different responses, a variety of them, office space, healthcare, retail. We did not receive a traditional grocery store operator for the large former Shop and Save space, but we'll be continuing to pursue the Center Avenue fronting retail spaces. The Hill CDC reached out to the URA and asked if we would be willing to consider sending the potential tenants through the development review process, which is the development review panel process, which is the Hill District's process for reviewing and providing feedback on development projects in their neighborhood. So we've been working pretty closely with the Hill CDC to come up with what we're calling a DRP light process so that we could get community input on the potential tenants, but it wouldn't be a full DRP process because that could be a little bit cumbersome on a tenant. So the Hill CDC is going to be hosting a virtual community meeting June 25th. And potential tenants will be giving a brief presentation on their ideas. Community residents will be able to fill out an online form and give us some feedback on those. And we'll use that information to help us inform final recommendations for lease up of the Center Avenue facing spaces. So if you're interested in attending that community meeting, you can go to hilldistrict.org/register and sign up to attend the community meeting.
Great, thank you. And finally,
so this next one is to announce the retirement of Clavera CC Creer. Anybody who's been, working with the URA, CC. It is with sort of a bittersweet moment to say goodbye to CC after 42 years of service in the city of Pittsburgh, 13 of those years spent at the URA. And so when I came to the URA in 2017, CC was the one who sort of showed me the ropes about the MWBE program and was, very supportive of, all of the folks that she supported over the years. And so I want to ask Columbus to give a few comments here about CC and what she's meant to the HR team during her time in service at the URA.
Hi, everyone. I believe CC's on. I just want to say, CC, was great working with you. Your work was truly amazing. I'm not easy to work with because I'm a perfectionist, but she was way ahead of me. She was always 2 steps ahead. She made the HR department better. She is going to be missed. What really stands out to me the most is when you hear outside stakeholders say, it was a pleasure working with CC, or CC helped me through this, and what a great asset to the URA she was. And I believe, Lindsay, you had some working with her as well and how efficient she was. And so, I know it's unbelievable to think, but that's kind of rare nowadays to have someone that is on top of things, can get things done, work well with outside stakeholders as well as internal individuals. So Cece's going to be missed. I'm very sad. Tomorrow's her last day. I don't know how I'm going to find someone to replace her to keep me on track. And Cece, I just want to say thank you for all you've done for the URA. And I'm getting a little emotional thinking about it. But I can say that she's a friend now. I don't make friends easily, but Cece was a great asset to the URA. And if she's on the line, I would really like her to say something.
Yes, Cece's here. Hold on. I'm not sure that she logged back in with the second round. I don't see her name, but this is being recorded, and we'll make sure that she gets the messages.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And CC, thanks for your years of service. So I think is that the end of the announcements? Yeah.
One more.
Oh, one more. Okay. Who's going to take this one on 2nd Avenue?
Sure, I can start. Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to brief the URA board on the progress our team has made on the proposal for the publicly owned parcels on and around the 4800 block of 2nd Avenue in Hazelwood. I'm Vanessa Murphy, a Pittsburgh-based senior project manager for the Community Builders, a national nonprofit that develops, owns, and manages affordable and income housing. I'm joined today by Ed Nesser, the Executive Director of the City of Bridges Community Land Trust, as our two nonprofit organizations partnered on our team's proposal to respond to the community's desire to include both affordable rental and affordable homeownership opportunities. To recap where we've been, in January, the URA staff notified our team that we were preliminarily selected as the developers and given a 90-day due diligence period to advance the design with respect to outlined deliverables. We met with the selection committee, many of which were Hazelwood stakeholders, to present the proposal, to present our organizations, to confirm that our proposal was on the right track, and to hear from them why this project was so important at the time. And the answers to the why were themed with the opportunity to create economic benefits for existing residents of Hazelwood, both in terms of housing and in terms of economic, retail, and commercial uses. We followed up with a more intimate conversation with three key stakeholders to refine the proposal program and then revise our designs and performance to include the feedback, at which time we were gearing up to have a broad community meeting to report out on the proposal refinements and to co-create a community engagement strategy. We were stopped shy of this due to the COVID-19 stay-at-home order, but are now in a position to resume the process. Quickly, the proposal has three components that are able to advance on parallel paths to jumpstart the implementation of the neighborhood plan released last fall. Component one will be developed by the community builders. It's a mixed-use, mixed-income apartment building with 44 units, 85% of which would be set aside for households at 60% AMI or below, and 15% unrestricted market. At the onset, we had proposed 100% affordable using an 80% income limit, and the stakeholders responded that they wanted some true market to create a true market mixed income community. The ground floor will provide between 5,000 and 7,000 square feet of ground floor commercial retail. Component two, my partner Ed Nesser will speak to in one moment. And component three is currently vacant land that the URA owns across the street from the apartment building. It's on the southern side of 2nd Avenue and abuts the railroad tracks. It's presently used as a community open air market, and we are recommending that this use continues in the near future, but be enhanced with solar canopies and parking to increase its functionality. The solar would offset the consumption of the residential apartment building and would provide shelter for the market vendors in the summer months. This component would be strongly guided by the community's interests and programming, but would remain in the URA's ownership until a higher, better use is identified in the future. It's a parcel that provides a view corridor into the Hazelwood Green site and therefore should really respond to and be developed intentionally with those parcels in mind, as well as we seek to integrate the neighborhood of Hazelwood Green and the existing fabric of the neighborhood. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Ed Nesser to speak to the homeownership component.
Thanks, Vanessa. As Vanessa said, I'm Ed Nesser. I'm the Executive Director of City of Bridges Community Land Trust. And I just want to say quickly, thank you, Chairman Williamson, for your comments to open this meeting. And thank you for the URA leadership and staff and board for continuing to have these hard conversations about what we need to do as a city and a region to advance a true, equitable, and just city. City of Bridges CLT is a regional community land trust. We work with community partners to develop and steward permanently affordable homes throughout the city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County. We envision diverse communities where people thrive, can build wealth, can establish roots, and can build community ties without the risk of displacement. And so key to that can be ownership. And so because of that, we're so excited about this opportunity to bring 12 permanently affordable homes to Hazelwood. As Vanessa outlined, we've had a series of early conversations with community partners and led us to the plan as it is right now that will go through further refinement. But the plan right now on our section of this project, as I said, contemplates creating 12 units of home ownership, 4 of which will be in a quadplex, which you see kind of in the bottom left-hand corner of the picture there across Hazelwood Avenue from Community Builders multifamily building. The quadplex would allow us a couple of things. First of all, the ability to create fully accessible units on the ground floor with 2 or 3 bedroom units above the 1 bedroom units. Would also allow us hopefully to serve a lower income bracket, hopefully into the 50 to 60% of AMI for at least a couple of those units. And then beyond those quadplex units, we have plans for 4 2-bedroom homes across Hazelwood Avenue. And then on Chatsworth Street, turning the corner, 4 3-bedroom townhomes would be on Chatsworth Street. The idea right now being that creating the larger, more families-oriented homes along Chatsworth places them on a quieter street with less traffic and larger yards that hopefully would be more attractive to families looking for homeownership opportunities. So as I said, all of these homes will be affordable to income to households earning less than 80% of area median, with our goal that the quadplex, like I said, will allow us to serve 1 or 2 households between 50 and 60% of area median. Lastly, our development budget for this does contemplate a new markets tax credit allocation. We've engaged Smith & Associates, who is responsible for assembling the ELDI new markets transaction that they used to create affordable for sale throughout East Liberty and Garfield. So we're really excited about building off of that success and proving for the city that tool can be a new tool in the toolbox for funding affordable for sale housing. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. Really interesting briefing. Can somebody from the URA staff just say a couple words about what the sort of next steps and process is for this project?
Yes, so Allison Jones is on the line and will provide a little bit more detail about the project. Allison?
Thank you. So the next steps are to formally go forward with the community engagement process, engaging GHCC and the Hazelwood Initiative, in addition to formalizing the site control. And that's something that we'll be working with Nathan on. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So that community process will continue before any action would have to be contemplated by the board.
Yes.
Correct. And when would be the next time we'd see this project? At least at a board meeting?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure, just asking when the next time we would see this project at a board meeting.
I think there are a lot of variables, but I don't expect that we'll come before the board until there's something to vote on.
Lindsay, this is Jessica. The next time would be when it needs to come for official exclusive negotiations. This is the step before exclusive negotiations. So I would assume in a couple more months, you'll see it here for exclusive.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions about this? Okay, thank you. So we actually, compared to the last few months, feels like we have a pretty short voting agenda today, starting with some residential and lending investments that I assume, Jessica, you're going to walk us through.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I am here this afternoon to talk specific to the Housing Stabilization Program. And as you all know, this is the program that is providing rental assistance and also mortgage assistance. Rental assistance to households that are below 50% area median income, and mortgage assistance that are below 80% area median income. And here is our COVID dashboard as it relates to this program that you have seen the last couple months. You can see we're up to 900 applicants. So 665 of them have either already received rental payments or are in the process of receiving rental payments. 80% are minority households and 56% are women-head of households. I want to speak real quickly to the comment about disclosing the public information related to this. At the Housing Opportunity Fund meeting last week, we showed demographic statistics. We also showed a map of everywhere in the city where we have helped, and the map is completely color-coded at this point for this program. And we identified, you know, folks based on demographics. We cannot share, unfortunately, the names or addresses of people who have received the funding or have been turned down for the funding. So I asked the folks that would like to see more information to send me an email, let me know exactly what demographic information you would like to see, because, you know, we'll just add that to our next set of slides for the Housing Opportunity Fund. But you can see here on this slide that the program originally was funded just by HOF, about $1 million a year for the first 2 years of HOF existence. It's getting another $1 million of HOF from the 2020 money. But last month, the city of Pittsburgh and the mayor's office gave us $2 million of the CDBG COVID to help fund the program that went through council. Additionally, the Pittsburgh Foundation has given us $400,000. RK Mellon's given us $75,000. Wells Fargo's given us $40,000. Therefore, you know, we have over $4 million. So today I am going to talk about contracts in the amount of a little more than $3 million that we are going to award to really help. You'll see on this slide, you see the wait list of 143 people. The providers, right now we have 4 providers. We have the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh, we have YWCA, we have Macedonia Faith, and we have Pittsburgh Mercy. And they are working pretty much night and day, and they've brought on a lot of volunteers and some staff to help, and they're going as fast as they can. But given the extreme need for this program right now, and the more money that's coming into the URA, we need to bring on more providers. So Daniel, if you go to the next slide, today I am here to ask for authorization to enter into contracts with 11 providers. We issued an RFP that was due in the middle of May to bring on more social service providers to the program to administer the rental assistance and the mortgage foreclosure prevention assistance. We received 16 responses, and today you're going to see 11 awards presented in front of you and from the group of folks you see on the slide. And when we get to the next slide, it'll break out the awards by dollar amount. But basically, these organizations all have experience in operating rental assistance programs and or mortgage foreclosure prevention programs. That's why they were selected to help. The 5 folks that responded that did not get selected were primarily smaller nonprofit community-based organizations that have a lot of really good feet on the ground when it comes to knowing their community, but have not ran a rental assistance program before. Therefore, we are working with our partners right now, Allegheny County Economic Development and Department of Human Services, to identify a program for them that we think we're going to entitle the Community Ambassador Program, where we provide smaller contracts, which you'll probably see next month at the board meeting, to nonprofits to help folks complete the applications and really navigate the system as well. The board has talked in past months about, you know, how difficult is the application for this program. We've been doing a lot of research on this in the last month, making sure that we fully understand the different forms that our service providers are using. They all are using a URA written form that is 3 pages long at this point. We had heard that they were using longer forms to help for non-English speaking population. We have worked with them to reduce that, to keep that long form from happening. But we want to make sure that, you know, all these groups are using the same form, and that we have these community ambassadors that we will be talking about in the future month or 2 that can help people fill out those applications. Next slide, Daniel. So you'll see here's the list, and so the authorizations that I'm asking for today is a contract with Macedonia Faith in the amount of 100,000, a contract with the Urban League in the amount of 550,000, YWCA in the amount of 500,000, Pittsburgh Mercy in the amount of 100,000, Action Housing in the amount of 550, Chartiers in the amount of 270, the Veterans Group in the amount of 95,000, NeighborWorks in the amount of 150,000, Goodwill for 200,000, PCSI for 200,000, and the Jewish Community and Family Services for 300,000. You can see on this grid which ones are going to be doing the mortgage assistance, and that is the Urban League, Action Housing, and NeighborWorks. Those were the organizations that had prior experience with that. We are also working with the Pittsburgh Foundation and the YWCA and Action Housing to figure out a way to tie the assistance directly with the courts and evictions when the eviction freeze stops. So the 400,000 from the Pittsburgh Foundation we're going to be using to kind of help figure that out. Today on the meeting we have, I believe, two providers that would like to speak. I want to introduce Brenda Green first from the Jewish Community and Family Services. Her organization partners with several organizations that work with non-English speaking populations, and I want Brenda to talk a little bit about that. Brenda?
Thank you. Thank you for introducing me and for welcoming me to do a public comment. And I also want to just thank you for the faith that you've bestowed in our organization. And I promise that we'll be good stewards of the funding and we'll make sure that it gets out in the most efficient way to the families and households that need it. Yeah, I actually am the program supervisor in the Refugee and Immigrant Services Department. So myself and my staff work almost exclusively with non-English speakers and people that are new to the country. And by new, it might mean 6 months or it could mean 20 years. But they have barriers to accessing services, including housing, because of culture or language. So that's part of our mission, is to help alleviate that. But we'll also be working along with our food pantry and our SOS program, which is crisis management. So we have in-house interpretation. Within our department, we hire from the communities we serve. So among my staff, I have 2 Arabic speakers, a Nepali speaker, 3 Spanish speakers, a Swahili speaker, and an Uzbek speaker. So we have those languages in-house. We also contract with 30 plus independent consultants that are bilingual or multilingual. So they do interpretation and translation for us at an hourly rate. And then we also have a contract with Language Services Associates, which is based out of Philadelphia. It's a telephonic interpretation service. And they have several hundred different languages. So in fact, just recently I had to find a Hakka Chin interpreter for a member of the Burmese community, and I was able to do that through telephonic interpretation. So we feel strongly that we'll be able to provide the services. And all forms that we use are always translated. Everybody gets paperwork in the language that is their first language. Even people that are English speakers, they can choose to still get materials in their own language if they want. We let the client determine that. In addition to that, we have licensed clinical social workers on staff, job counselors. So we're able to work with people, financial planners. We're able to work with them on sustainability plans and help them really moving forward, both with the assistance, but then with long-term goals as well through a variety of programs that we have within the agency. And as she mentioned earlier, we partner with a lot of organizations. One of the programs I supervise is our Immigrant Services and Connections program, ISAC, which is a DHS funded program. Our partner agencies are Literacy Pittsburgh, Casa San Jose, the Latino Family Center, and SHIM, the South Hills Interfaith Movement. So all of those organizations work together on our immigrant programs. We also work very collaboratively with some of the smaller organizations that serve specific communities, like the Somali Bantu Association, BCAP, which is the Bhutanese Community Association of Pittsburgh, the Haitian community, a number of other groups. So overall, we know this is a big job moving forward, and we don't take it lightly, but we feel that we have the infrastructure in place to manage the grant effectively. Thank you for the faith that you've placed in us, and you won't be disappointed.
Thank you, Brenda. Odell Richardson from PCSI, Pittsburgh Community Services, are you here?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's the first time I'm actually using this system in my office. Good afternoon. My name is Odell Richardson. I'm the Executive Director of Pittsburgh Community Services, Inc. I want to thank the Housing Opportunity Fund for putting forward our response to the RFP, putting forward to the URA. I want to thank the URA and especially Mrs. Walker, who was very encouraging and insisting that we put some sharing forward as far as this grant is concerned. Just to give you a very brief background, Pittsburgh Community Services, Inc. is the federally designated community action agency for the city of Pittsburgh. In response to Mr. Williamson's opening remarks about referencing the civil rights movement in the 60s, and in particular President Johnson's work that he did and putting that forward, that's where community action was born in 1964 when President Johnson declared the war on poverty. It led to the creation of over 1,000 community action agencies across the country. There's been a community action agency in the city of Pittsburgh since 1964. PCSI has been incorporated since 1983. We have one mandate with our funding. We're a line item in the federal budget, and that's to move folks that live at 125% of the poverty level and below to some form of self-sufficiency. Now, in sharing the Community Action Agency network with the passage of the stimulus funding, received $1 billion across the entire country. Every Community Action Agency, on top of our regular funding, received funding to provide in our geographic areas a response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I was very pleased to participate in this. I look forward to partnering with the URA, but know that PCSI and our responsibilities as Community Action Agency will also be bringing and adding resources to the table. This was one of the efforts that we have been involved with in terms of rent support, housing stabilization since our inception. And this time around and moving forward is not going to be an exception. We'll actually be able to add additional resources to significantly impact on this particular effort and other things that we're looking to do around the city of Pittsburgh. Thank you, and I appreciate your consideration of our proposal.
Thank you, Odell. And thank you, Brenda. Does anyone from the URA board have any questions or comments?
I do. This is Jody. So, I mean, obviously the URA needs to outsource some of this to experienced service providers. And I know some of these organizations and their administrators. Hi, Brenda. So I'm sure they're going to be great. I'm just wondering how, with this many different providers, how we sort of standardize the process. So, you know, like how are we going to know what the acceptable turnaround is from, you know, first call to money in hand? How, you know, I guess just sort of like what's the theory behind using 11 different service providers versus building up, you know, one or two and working closely with them. And I understand the language barrier is a significant reason, so that I understand, but I'm wondering about it in other terms.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. And that's something we've been thinking a lot about at the URA as well. And of course, when we started this program a year and a half ago, we started with 4 providers, you know, so now we're going to be up to 11. So a couple things as it relates to that. Over the last year and a half, we do have a pretty standardized system set up. We have a SharePoint system that all the providers will be using. They also will enter very limited data into a federal HMIS system as well. And all the paperwork and inspections and everything is all going to be extremely uniform. So everybody should be doing the same thing. Our staff is mobilized to be able to train folks over the course of the next month, because we're wanting most of these organizations to be able to start at the beginning of July. So they will be training them over the course of the next month. And additionally, right now, we still have 211 in place to provide coordination, and we'll feed the clients to the groups. We thought that we needed to bring on more groups now that we have systems in place, because the 4 groups we have, they're great, they're doing great work. They just don't have enough people. The demand is just so high. So our hope is, now that we have systems in place that everyone can function the same, that 11 groups will be able to go faster than 4, and that our waiting list will be smaller. So that's the logic.
Okay.
I had a few questions. First, before I forget, would you be able to send the board members the map that you shared to the advisory, the Housing Opportunity Advisory Board? I think it was a map.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. The second thing was, thank you for taking, I think, the suggestion from a few meetings back about incorporating a provider that particularly works with the welcoming community. So I love to see JFCS on this list. One thing that I did have a question about, if there was a way in particular that we would ensure that one of these groups, or maybe in the future, contracting an additional group that would be able to specifically help LGBTQ communities. We're seeing when it comes to homelessness, in particular for young LGBTQ folks, that they have higher rates of homelessness. And I think having a provider that works very closely within these communities, knows the folks who may be in need of assistance, would be really helpful to make sure that we're reaching as many people in need as we can. So I don't know if that's, one of these providers doing a subcontract with another one, or in the future we look towards that, but just something to throw out there while we're on the subject. And then the last little bit was to Jody's point about standardizing the process. If there is a way to ensure that, and I don't, maybe perhaps this is already happening and I'm just not aware, but, obviously everyone's case is different. So when they come to a provider, depending on their own situation, it may take them, 2 weeks or 7 weeks, what have you, to get funding or get to the appropriate, to get funding. So is there a process that we could standardize for providers to ensure that, even if it's not a yes or no, like, yes, we can give you funding, or here's where you should go, that we're checking in with folks once a week, every 2 weeks, what have you, to make sure that folks know that, yes, we are working on your case. Yes, we have a, high volume, but, so folks don't feel like they're forgotten in this process.
I mean, I would take that even further and say, we actually have to have something that is we have folks who are desperately in need of help. It's actually not okay that they're not getting it in a standardized frame that we've said, you have to have some feedback within a day, 2 days, and you have to be housed by 10 days or whatever it is. I'm not an expert in how long it takes, but I do worry about the barriers, and it actually speaks to your question about the LGBTQ population as well, Lindsay, is that with this many different providers, we just have to be really careful that everyone who talks to folks are not putting up any kind of barriers, both to that population or any other. Language is not the only barrier to worry about, although it's, of course, a significant one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying. I will work with staff to make sure when they talk to these providers that we create a unified response in a certain number of days, that everyone needs to respond in a certain number of days. A couple of things that we are working on. We've been meeting a lot with Allegheny County Economic Development and the Department of Human Services, because we want to coordinate what we're doing with their programs as well. So if somebody lives you know, 2 blocks outside the city limits and it's actually in Allegheny County and not in the city, they should be able to have a similar system that is similarly navigated. So we've been working with them to try to figure that out. We also want to make sure that our providers, if this program is not a fit, and it's a fit for a lot of people, but unfortunately, sometimes people are in a situation where they need longer term help. This program is a stabilization program and it's supposed to help people from between 1 to 3 months. If somebody is in a situation where they need longer term help, there should be a clean handoff between our provider and the ESG program provider. And we do need to make sure that's happening. So I definitely hear your comments, and we will try our best to work with the providers to get that to happen. And I also, I will talk to staff. I'm not sure which ones of these groups work directly with the LGBT community, but we will find out, and we will make sure that there is at least one, if not more, that have those connections.
Awesome, thank you.
So can I have 2 questions before we, I don't know, maybe take a vote on this, but is there a clear and seamless process for 211 to like, I don't know, direct people into one of these? I mean, how are they going to decide with 11 providers who somebody actually ends up working with? Because the first step for people is they call 211, right? And then they refer it out to one of the providers?
Yep. Yeah, so the goal is that the providers are in constant communication with 211, so that 211 knows, you know, how many clients they're helping, if they have excess, you know, staff available to help more clients, and so that 211 can put them with the provider that can get to them the quickest. That's sort of the goal of 211. 211 also can provide language translation as well. So those are the reasons we have hired 211. Now, we have heard that there are some kinks in the process because some operators, 211 operators, might not have the same information as other 211 operators. So we're working to make sure that all the operators at 211 are operating the same way, but the reason we're using them as an intake service is so that they can coordinate that wait list and get them to the most available provider. Because what was happening before 211 was people were calling all 4 providers, getting on all 4 providers' wait lists. And then the numbers were overly elevated at that point. And you know, they were just making a lot of calls, and it just wasn't helpful for anybody. It wasn't helpful for the tenant, and it wasn't helpful for the providers. So that is why we're trying 211.
So thanks, that's helpful. And then my other question, I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but are we seeing that there are either applications being rejected or delays in processing them because people have to prove that they have a plan for stabilization? And if so, like, I mean, that's something that might need a legislative fix, I would think, right?
Well, so I think there's a before COVID response and the after COVID response to that. So in terms of a legislative fix, I mean, when the guidelines were written, they were written to help folks that were in a temporary bind, basically, and needed a way to stabilize themselves before they lost their housing and were eligible for ESG programs. And so I would say that people were probably getting turned down, if not so much turned down, but referred to an ESG program if their situation was such that they needed more of the long-term support. Now with COVID, things are a little bit different, and the providers are acting much more flexibly. You know, with COVID, if people were laid off, you know, they're assumed to believe that they will be employed again once COVID is over, and then they're asking a lot less questions on that front. I will say that we are getting the CDBG money, and so we're going to have to follow kind of a series of CDBG regs when it comes to documenting this as well now. But with post-COVID, they're more flexible.
Okay.
I would say the largest reason people are being turned down is because they live outside the city. If they're within the city and they are income eligible, the providers do whatever they can to try to work with them or pass them off directly to ESG.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments? We are expecting a big, well, I don't know, what we're expecting a surge of evictions once the eviction moratorium expires.
Yes.
Next month, so it's good that we're doing this now.
I just want to say quickly that I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but agree with this, but I'm on the board of 2D organizations here, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? And if there are none, I would ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. The motion is seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And let the record show that Director Powell has abstained.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on to the overview of the COVID-19 Emergency Loan Fund.
I'll take this. As you know, we started an emergency loan fund in mid-March in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and the fact that businesses had to shut down. This dashboard shows you where we stand as of June 5th. We had, at that point, given out 185 loans to businesses inside the city of Pittsburgh. We're continuing, of course, to run that fund. And we have gotten great results working with very small businesses, many of them who don't have access or haven't been able to access other sources of funding and financing to meet their short-term needs for the business, especially those that had to close and lay people off. So we've been focusing on that for the last couple, 2.5 months now. And our latest numbers. This, of course, leads me into the actual agenda item, which is the next phase in our plan to help businesses now into the recovery. If you can go to the next slide, please. So last board meeting, you were made aware and received the guidelines for a new program that we're hoping to launch starting today, if the board does approve this. And that is a recovery fund program for small businesses inside the city of Pittsburgh who need dollars in order to really reopen and get going again post the shutdown. And so now that we're in the green phase and businesses have a little bit more flexibility, they may need dollars, of course, to make sure that they have the right social distancing items in place, PPE, all the different items that you may need. We, of course, anticipate that a lot of businesses were forced to lay off workers, and now they need to rehire them. And of course, if they had inventory that might have spoiled or expired, they'll need to do that as well. And so the difference is that this fund provides additional funding up to $75,000, so more than our emergency loan fund. This one will provide larger amounts of capital to just meet those needs, and we're very excited to be able to do this. We have now the 2 programs that we're hoping to run, so we'll continue to run the emergency loan program up to $15,000, and now the small business recovery loan up to $75,000. Next slide, please. So we are planning to target, of course, most disadvantaged businesses, very small businesses, minority businesses, women-owned businesses, just like we've been doing with our emergency loan fund. We are making the requirement that this is for businesses with less than 30 employees. We really want to make sure that we're getting the businesses that are potentially lower resourced and don't have necessarily the ability or access to other types of capital. Here you can see that there are the 2 programs laid out, what they look like, what the different terms are. Continues to be a very accessible product for small businesses. We are trying to make it as flexible as possible so that there are no barriers for businesses that need and want to use this. Are there any questions?
None here. Let's get this money moving.
Yeah, it seems really straightforward. Thank you for working on this.
Yeah, we're very excited that we're going to get money through the CARES Act. Thank you, to the city and the mayor for allowing us to get the $5 million to help seed this new program, this larger recovery fund program, and we are hoping to get that out the door as soon as possible.
When can businesses apply?
Starting today, right now.
Not today. Okay.
I just made, well, if you approve it, if you approve it right now.
Okay.
It's the same link that we had. So just so you know too, if you had shared the link to the ELF, the Emergency Loan Fund, it is the same link. And so businesses now can apply for either at the same application. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Representative Gainey, do you have a question?
No, I did, but she answered it at the end. Thank you.
Okay.
But I just was curious. I am a little curious. How are we getting it out, particularly the minority businesses? You know, how are we getting the word out? Because I get a lot of calls from a lot of small minority businesses, African-American businesses, of what they could, of how they can apply, what they can do. Most of them don't even know we're doing a lot of things like this. Is there an intentional way that we're getting this information out?
Yeah, so we're working with.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jennifer. Go ahead.
Well, you can answer, Diamante.
Oh, okay. So we're going to have a pretty aggressive marketing push around this, and we're going to particularly geo-target minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. You know, we talked a lot today about, you know, LGBTQ. We're going to make sure that this funding finds its way to those that that find themselves in need and have been shut out of the PPP process. So the communications team is working on a campaign. We'll have a lot of info sessions, and we'll make sure that this deeply permeates the market that needs it the most.
Yes, and also, sorry.
Go ahead, no, go ahead, I'm sorry.
To the, also the immigrant population, just so you know, we have preemptively translated our materials for this program into 5 languages so people can get that snapshot of what the program entails so that they're able to decide if they're interested in the program. We're working with the Welcoming Pittsburgh initiative on that. And of course, continuing to outreach to all of our networks through all the neighborhoods. So we especially work with in the minority neighborhoods. We have a lot of different things coming up to make sure that people are aware.
As the campaign kicks off, I'd just like to stay informed on that right there. And if there's anything I can do, particularly to reach out to businesses, I would love to do it.
I'll make sure you stay informed.
Yes, thank you. We'd love to take you up on that. Any other questions I can answer? Thank you so much.
Thank you. There's no other questions or comments. We need a motion to approve, I think.
So moved.
We'll move on that before we move on from it. Was motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Great. Thanks. Now we can move on to exclusive negotiations with Arkindle Development in the Middle Hill.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Chuck Elkhorn, Project Development Manager in the Neighborhood Development Department, here to present this project and request authorization to enter exclusive negotiations with Arkindle Development Group for 6 months for the sale of 5 publicly owned parcels in the 2100 block of Rose Street in the Middle Hill District. In last summer, in 2019, the URA released a request for qualifications seeking development expertise and proposals for 70 publicly owned parcels along the Center Avenue corridor in the Middle Hill. That RFQ received 11 qualifications, 6 of which were presented to the board in February for exclusive negotiations. And all those are now going through more due diligence process. So Arkindle has been talking with URA staff on their proposal, and we feel comfortable moving them through the exclusive negotiation process so they can do some more work on their budgets and design proposals and go through the community design process with a DRP. The proposal is for 5 to 6 single family for sale houses on 5 vacant lots. One of the houses would be affordable to a household at or below 80% AMI. And the proposed units will be will range from 1,200 to 2,000 square feet with 2 to 3 bedrooms, integral garages at the ground floor. Together, the parcels are a little over 10,000 square feet. And our Kendall Development is a Pennsylvania company based in Warrendale, PA. Is there any questions regarding this development?
No questions. Just want to thank staff for actually working this through over the past however many months. This was one of the original respondents to the Center Avenue RFP process. And so there were some concerns on the community side, but we also said that we were going to work with him to try to get towards a better resolution. So I just want to thank you all for continuing to work to get him to this point.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Just a quick one, comment more about the at least one house affordable at or below 80% AMI. I know, I'm sure that you'll be working with the URA and others to ensure that we can, you know, expand that number if possible and deepen the affordability there.
That's noted, and we can take those comments back to the developer and see if it can work in their pro forma.
Yes, we're continuing to work with the developer. I have a few ideas about how we might be able to get to other levels of affordability. The site does have exorbitant site costs. So that's one of the things that we've had to take into account, but we are working diligently. And I think that this exclusive negotiation period will help us to be very creative about how we can do exactly what you asked for, Director Powell.
What do we think that the market rate sales prices would be for these homes?
I don't know that we have those numbers right here in front of us. We can look into that and get that information to you. The Hill District sale prices, depending on where you are, where that location is, it varies across the spectrum. Houses, you know, for $20,000, and then you have, you know, $500,000 houses. So just we would need to look at it, and we can get that information to you, Sam.
Okay, thanks.
Actually, this is Jessica. I met with the developer earlier this week. He's looking at the high 300s to the low 400s for his market rate price.
Okay.
Yeah, which is not a price very many middle or low income families can afford. So okay, but this is exclusive negotiation. So you know, it's going to come back to us, and we have time to dig deeper into those numbers and try to push for greater affordability.
So I'm gonna chime in for a second, only because, and we need to have a sort of a comprehensive conversation over affordability, which is absolutely needed. I'm an advocate for it. At the same time, when do you embrace market rate development, right? So earlier in the conversation, when we started this meeting, we were talking about the shop and save. Part of the reason that wasn't able to sustain itself, at least one factor, was the lack of market rate, the lack of expendable dollars within the communities to support the grocery store. And so I'm not suggesting I have the answer, but I do think at some point in time, it'd be helpful to work with staff, especially in a neighborhood like the Hill District, where you need to figure out what is the healthy balance between pushing for affordability, but also needing market rate development to support Avenue as we try to redevelop that. So it's just, I think it's whoever appropriate on staff, it would be helpful for me at least to sort of try to talk that through and better understand that.
That's a really good point.
Agree.
We'll schedule a follow-up to start to talk through that.
Thank you.
Okay, so now the proposal is to move forward with exclusive negotiations here. So any additional questions or comments or issues with that? And if there are none, then a motion to approve would be in order.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Great, thank you. That brings us to Agenda B, which we're gonna vote in its entirety with the exception of item number 2C. Item 2C is a waiver of, was a proposed waiver of city residency for two potential new employees of the URA. The URA has a longstanding, and frankly, rightfully so, we have a longstanding rule that staff of the URA have to reside within the city of Pittsburgh. And there was a proposal to waive that requirement for a couple of potential new employees, and that is not something that we think is appropriate, frankly. So we're going to strike that from Agenda B. With that amendment, are there anything else to draw attention to in Agenda B, or any questions or comments? No. A motion to approve in its near entirety, with the exception of item 2C, would be in order.
So move.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. And any final parting thoughts or comments from the board? Oh.
No, thank you guys for your hard work. I know that stuff is obviously wrapped up with a lot of our programs, and I just always appreciate you guys working so quickly and quickly to start these new programs and make sure that all of our residents are served.
Can Greg or Diamante, can somebody provide like a real quick 30-second update on the return to the building for the URA and kind of the current thinking on when these meetings will resume?
Absolutely. So as the board is aware now, to make the public aware, the URA has formed an internal committee called the COVID Action Team. And so they dedicate the majority of their time developing a plan to help repatriate us to the building. I believe that the county moved to the green on June 5th. And so we had a plan in place that said that, when the county moves to green, we will, over a 3-week period, start to recommission the 412 Boulevard of the Allies building for reoccupation. So the goal at this point is to begin allowing staff to migrate back into the building. We will have no more than 25 staff members in the building at a time each day, Monday through Friday. So we've all been given, a really fancy color coding system, so we know which bucket we are in, so that we can begin to access the building and do a lot of the things that are challenging to do from home. We've made it work over the last 90 days, but we certainly need access to our facility in order to work at maximum efficiency. And so, so we will start to do that. We are going to keep the building closed to the public for the time being, out of an abundance of caution and in public health concern. But we'll, certainly allow the board to access the building as needed, and staff in droves of 25 will be able to access the building. We can provide a more public-facing update in July, but I do anticipate at least 1 or 2 more virtual board meetings at this time. But we are very eager and excited to get back into our building and begin interfacing with the public in person again. And I want to thank the staff and those who sit on the COVID Action Team, Daniel Grantham, Columbus Brooks, Corey, Constance. I'm probably forgetting somebody's name. Please charge it to my mind and not my heart. But they've worked very hard and spent countless hours coming up with a really thoughtful program under our legal department's guidance. So Nathan and Columbus work very closely together to make sure that we're following both HR policy regulations as well as any CDC regulations or any edicts that come out from the governor's office.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Okay. Any other, if there's no other updates or good and welfare, then a motion to adjourn, I think, is what we need.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting stands adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
You.
Thank you, everybody.